You know, in esports, some moments feel so perfect you'd swear they were scripted. You've got a rising star, a seemingly unbeatable legend, and a score to settle on the biggest stage imaginable. These are the stories we live for. But what happens when the greatest story, the most unbelievable upset, is one you can't actually find? This is the tale of Kenji, a 21-year-old Filipino student, and Bao, a legendary Vietnamese pro. It's a story of public humiliation and the ultimate revenge in a massive Mobile Legends match with the whole world watching. It has all the ingredients of an all-time classic, but there's a twist that makes it even more powerful. It all started with a single arrogant post on social media, a living legend mocking a student, a giant poking a bear. He probably never thought that student would answer him, not with words, but in the server on the world stage for the ultimate prize. This is the story of a victory that became a myth, but the truth behind that myth is the real story. So to get what happened here, or at least what people believe happened, you first need to understand the battlefield. The game is Mobile Legends, bang bang. And in Southeast Asia, it's not just a game, it's a full-blown cultural phenomenon. In this world, two nations are titans: Vietnam, with its fierce and deep competitive history, and the Philippines, a country whose passion for MLBB burns hotter than 1,000 suns. The Philippines has a reputation for bringing some of the most dominant and game-changing players to the world stage. Our story, as it's told on forums, in comment sections and on late-night Discord calls, stars two classic characters. First, you have the legend, a Vietnamese pro we'll just call Bao. In this story, Bao is everything a champion is supposed to be: insanely skilled, confident, and covered in glory. He's a giant, a player whose name alone demands respect and fear. He's the final boss. Then there's the challenger, Gian Villa, better known as Kenji, a 21-year-old Filipino student who was also a professional gamer. Now, Kenji isn't some rookie. In the real world, he's a seasoned veteran. He was a former team captain for the powerhouse Filipino team RSG Philippines, and even won a gold medal for his country at the 2019 Southeast Asian Games. He was a pillar of the Filipino MLBB scene. But in this story, he's cast as the underdog, the quiet student facing down an international titan. He represents the heart of the Filipino fighting spirit, humble but absolutely relentless when challenged. The legend of Kenji and Bao is your classic David versus Goliath story, tailor-made for esports. It's about more than just a game. It's about national pride, respect, and that deep human need to prove everyone wrong. This is the setup. The calm before a storm that wasn't kicked off by a tournament bracket, but by a single public act of disrespect. The fuse, as the story goes, was lit online. In the days before a huge international tournament, the legendary Bao apparently went on social media. Maybe he was overconfident, maybe it was just a mind game, but he made a post that everyone took as a direct shot at Kenji. The exact details change depending on who's telling it. Some say he dismissed Kenji's skill, others claim it was a shot at the entire Filipino scene, basically calling them second-rate. Whatever he actually said, the impact was explosive. It was a public slap in the face, and in the super passionate nationalistic world of Southeast Asian esports, this was more than trash talk. It was a challenge. The community went nuts. Filipino fans, famous for their die-hard support, rallied behind their guy. Vietnamese fans defended their champion. Everyone else just grabbed their popcorn. The narrative was set. This was a grudge match. For Kenji, the pressure must have been insane. He wasn't just playing for a trophy anymore. He was suddenly carrying the honor of his entire country, all because a giant of the sport had publicly written him off. That one post turned a regular esports match into a quest for redemption. Kenji, the quiet student, now had to answer, not with a tweet, but in the land of dawn, where skill is the only thing that talks. and the whole world was watching. The days before the match were thick with tension. Every forum, every YouTube comment section, every streamer's chat was a war zone of opinions. Did Bao's ego finally go too far? Or was he just speaking the truth? Could Kenji, the veteran who was now being cast as an underdog, actually pull this off? This is that part of the hero's journey where he's training for the final test. The storytellers say Kenji just shut out the noise and used the mockery as fuel. While everyone was arguing online, he was in the lab, studying VODs of Bao's team, planning with his teammates, and grinding for hours. He was a leader, known for his smart, adaptable playstyle, skills he'd built over years of competing. He wasn't just getting ready to play a game. He was getting ready to tear down a legend. The story needed him to be more than just a good player. It needed him to be a master strategist who could inspire his team to overcome not just their opponents, but the mind games being played against them. On the other side, Bao and his team were the perfect villains. A polished, dominant machine, maybe a little too comfortable at the top. Because of that post, they had to win. A loss wouldn't just be a tournament defeat, it would be a massive public humiliation that would stick around way longer than any trophy. The stage was set for a series that felt more like a movie. The casters, the analysts, the millions of fans watching, everyone knew the stakes. This wasn't just about who moved on, it was about pride, respect, and a young Filipino player's mission for the ultimate revenge. As the draft for Game 1 started, you could almost feel the world holding its breath. The showdown was finally here. Game 1, the legend says, went exactly how the doubters expected. Bao's team was a wrecking ball. They were coordinated, aggressive, and just plain ruthless. They took Kenji's squad apart piece by piece, winning fights and closing out the game with an almost arrogant final push. The scoreboard was ugly. The stream chat in this version of events was full of taunts. See, Bao was right. PH talent is overrated. It looked like the legend was about to be proven right in the most brutal way possible. Game 2 was the turning point. Facing a crushing 0-2 deficit, Kenji changed things up. The story describes a genius-level draft, a strategic pivot that caught Bao's team completely by surprise. Kenji put himself on one of his signature heroes, a pick he was famous for, one that let him control the whole game. The match was a nail-biter, a bloody back-and-forth war. But in the final game-deciding team fight, Kenji made the play. A flicker initiation, a perfect ultimate, a huge stun that shattered Bao's team and their confidence. Kenji's team wiped them out and marched down the middle to tie the series. The crowd went ballistic. The impossible suddenly felt very, very possible. Game 3 was a masterclass in momentum. Kenji's team was flying, playing with a swagger they didn't have before. They owned the map, they read Bao's every move, and they punished every tiny mistake. The psychological edge had completely flipped. Bao's team, once so cool and dominant, looked shaken. They were making dumb mistakes, taking bad fights. Kenji's leadership was on full display as his team rolled to a quick victory. They were just one game away from the unthinkable. Game 4 was everything. The pressure was suffocating. Every player knew this one game could make or break a legacy. The early game was tense, cautious. But then, it happened. A fight broke out that looked like a disaster for Kenji's team. But Kenji, with ice in his veins, turned it around. He found a flank, dove into their backline, and surgically took out Bao's damage dealers, including the legend himself. That was the play that broke them. After that, it was a slow, methodical execution. Kenji and his team took the Lord, pushed down the inhibitors, and stood at the enemy's doorstep, ready to complete the reverse sweep. As the crystal exploded, the stadium erupted. The casters were screaming, losing their voices in disbelief. The camera cut to Kenji, a look of pure victory on his face. And then it cut to Bao, head in his hands, a legend defeated. The student had just dethroned the king. The aftermath, as the legend goes, was pure validation. The internet exploded with praise for Kenji. Bao's arrogant post was screenshotted and spammed everywhere, a perfect meme of pride coming before the fall. Kenji became an icon, the symbol of the Filipino spirit, resilient, humble, and dominant when pushed. His win was a message. Never, ever underestimate a Filipino gamer. It's a perfect story. It's got drama, emotion, and a satisfying ending. But here's where things get really interesting. When you actually try to find this match, the VODs, the tournament brackets, the articles, you can't. There's no official record of a major international tournament where a Filipino team led by Kenji Villa had a dramatic reverse sweep against a top Vietnamese team led by a player named Bao. The most recent major international MLBB event, as of late 2025, was the Esports World Cup, which was won by another Filipino team, Team Liquid Philippines, in a dominant showing against the Selangor Red Giants. Kenji Villa did part ways with RSG Philippines, but that happened way back in early 2023. Searches for a famous Vietnamese legend named Bao involved in a rivalry like this come up empty. That viral social media post that supposedly ignited a firestorm, it doesn't seem to exist. The epic finals, the reverse sweep, the taunting rival, it all appears to be a beautifully crafted work of esports folklore. So the title of this video isn't really a question about strategy. The real question isn't how Kenji won. It's why this story was created, and why it means so much to so many people, even without being real. The legend of Kenji versus Bao sticks around because it's a story the Filipino esports community feels in its soul. It's an allegory, a perfect summary of their own journey in pro gaming. The Philippines has a very real history of being the underdog that rises to become a titan. Their dominance in the MLBB World Championships and the SEA Games isn't a myth. It's a hard-earned reality. This narrative captures the spirit of that journey perfectly. Kenji stands in for the countless talented Filipino players who come from humble beginnings, driven by pure passion and a need to be the best. He is the spirit of real-life legends who have defined the game and brought home world championships. Bao, the fictional villain, represents every powerhouse, every international doubter, and every top-ranked team that ever looked down on Filipino talent. His non-existent mockery is every negative comment ever made, and his epic defeat is the cathartic fantasy of proving every single one of them wrong. The story works because it feels true, even if it isn't factual. It speaks to a deeper truth about the Filipino gamer identity, a player defined by resilience, creativity, and a quiet confidence that explodes into brilliance on the world stage. For years, the Philippines has been a dominant force in Mobile Legends, the result of a deep gaming culture and an infrastructure built on the back of past MOBA giants. This story is just a dramatic retelling of that very real dominance. The Kenji versus Bao legend is a modern-day epic for the esports generation. It's a rallying cry and a source of national pride. It's proof that in esports, the stories we tell ourselves, the myths we build, can be just as powerful as the wins themselves. Kenji didn't defeat the legend in a server you can re-watch. He defeated him in the collective imagination of a fan base that knows exactly what it feels like to be the underdog who becomes the champion. The world of esports is filled with incredible stories, both real and legendary, and those stories define the culture just as much as the games do. For more deep dives into the figures and events that shape professional gaming, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. In the end, whether the match was real or not almost doesn't matter. The legend of Kenji's revenge serves a bigger purpose. It's a reflection of a nation's passion for a game and its unshakable belief in its own champions. It's a story that reminds us why we watch esports, not just for the insane skill, but for the human drama of pride, respect, and the eternally satisfying sight of an underdog having his day.